You and I, here in this silent space beyond all the commotion, can at last speak without pretense. Strip away the layers of noise, the clamor of other people's expectations, the bright distractions that promise everything and deliver nothing. In this hush, you feel it, the peculiar ache in the center of your being, that almost imperceptible tension that whispers, you were never meant to live small. It is the sensation of potential unfulfilled, a life of immense horizons narrowed down to a dim corridor. You keep pacing like a restless captive. You sense it most when you open your eyes in the morning, when the day lies before you still unclaimed, and already a weary fog of dissatisfaction creeps in, tinting the sunlight with regret. It is not a loud regret. It is softer, more insidious. A dull compromise echoing through your choices, until you start to wonder if you even chose at all. In the secret conversations you have with your own reflection, you can see it in your own gaze, those eyes once bright with hunger and wild belief, now dulled by resignation. You became a man who trades the call to greatness for the ease of habit, who bargains his birthright for passing comfort. And you have tried to diagnose this stagnation by searching everywhere but the heart of it. You have blamed your profession, your childhood, the countless disappointments of other people. You have erected a cathedral of excuses to shield yourself from a truth so plain it terrifies you. You have been ruled, not by a tyrant in some distant palace, not by a conspiratorial cabal in shadowed rooms, but by something far closer and more cunning. You are a marionette whose strings are pulled by your own appetites, and you have convinced yourself those strings are metals pinned to your chest. There is a seducer who knows every secret of your instincts. He is no cartoon devil with horns and pitchfork. He is a principle woven into your very nature, a force that never tires. He does not come roaring in the night. He arrives as a whisper of indulgence, a suggestion that feels so natural you never think to question it. He does not need to steal your ambition outright. Instead, he offers you a transaction so lopsided you never even see the cost. Your promise of a grand life traded, moment by moment, for a brief annihilation of self. He intoxicates you with the shimmering relief of the climax. He trains you to return to it again and again, to build your days around the pursuit of this small death that masquerades as triumph. And every time you surrender to this rhythm, you drain away the mysterious force that could have carved a monument out of your existence. It is a rhythm as ancient as desire itself. You feel the tension mounting, your thoughts dissolving, the promise of release so bright it eclipses every other aspiration. And in that instant, when your body overtakes your will, when the fleeting pleasure flares and vanishes, you are emptied. You mistake this emptiness for satisfaction, not understanding that you are feeding your genius into a furnace for the warmth of a single heartbeat. And when you emerge from that momentary oblivion, you are not free. You are simply spent. Your spirit languishes in the afterglow, too weakened to reclaim the ambitions you once swore would define you. This is the architecture of your captivity, a loop so hypnotic you call it normal. The one who confided this method of control to Napoleon Hill named it plainly. He does not conquer you with violence. He enthralls you by teaching you to worship the act that dissipates your strength. He knows that if you are made to believe this is the pinnacle of existence, you will never notice how it robs you. You will never see how it rots the foundation of everything you could build. When pressed, he confessed that there is no force he prefers to wield over humanity than the lust unmastered, for in that domain, he achieves the same dominion over the brilliant and the ignorant, the youthful and the withered, the kings and the common men. Read that admission and allow it to settle into the marrow of your understanding. He rules every soul who fails to govern this force, not a few, not some, but every one. The gateway to your subjugation is so deceptively mundane, you scoff at the notion that it could be your undoing, and that is precisely why it works. You think the culture of obsessive indulgence is a sign of progress, of liberation, but it is a monument to enslavement. You have been conditioned to believe that the ultimate aim of all this energy is simply to discharge it. You have been told that to refrain, to redirect, to harness it for something more profound is repression, prudishness, a denial of your nature. But the truth is more subversive. It is not repression that weakens you. It is the squandering. A man without mastery of this appetite becomes a drifter, a hollow vessel buffeted by every passing impulse. He becomes a stranger to purpose, a creature so busy avoiding discomfort that he never glimpses the heights he was fashioned to ascend. He convinces himself his lack of direction is openness, that to drift is to remain flexible. But the drifter is not free. He is exiled from the possibility of mastery, and in his exile, he becomes a master of self-justification, a consummate lawyer arguing for his own diminishment. When the cravings return, and they always do, he rehearses the same familiar rationalizations. He tells himself he deserves the respite, that he needs it to clear his mind, that tomorrow, armed with temporary relief, he will rise to his greater ambitions. And when tomorrow comes, he is weaker than before, less certain, more compromised. Observe the shape of time in such a life. The present, bloated with urgency, is all-consuming. The future, hazy and ill-defined, is a mirage he insists he will reach eventually. The past, littered with abandoned resolves and half-finished endeavors, is an unvisited graveyard. In this state, long-term purpose becomes an impossibility, because the mind has been taught to equate satisfaction only with immediate, overwhelming sensation. It becomes addicted to the crescendo, and all that is slow, deliberate, and patient feels like deprivation. Thus, the great works, the books unwritten, the enterprises unbuilt, the lives unreclaimed, remain perpetually out of reach. At the heart of this paralysis is the secret dread of commitment. To choose one purpose with finality means to extinguish countless other possibilities. To step decisively in one direction is to accept the irrevocable loss of all other paths. And this terrifies the drifting man. So he remains suspended in potential, never transforming it into reality. He lingers in the antechamber of becoming, all the doors before him unopened. And when the fear becomes too loud to ignore, he retreats into the one ritual that silences it for an instant, the ritual of indulgence, the narcotic of the flesh. This is why the addiction is so effective. It keeps the soul sedated, forever postponing the moment when a man must confront who he really is. So when you feel the compulsion, when the tension grips your mind, understand this is not merely a quirk of biology. It is a calculated mechanism. It is the perfect lever for engineering your compliance. The fixation on the orgasm hijacks your will, draining your reserves of that raw creative current from which all meaningful labor flows. You will tell yourself that you are entitled to this solace, that your plans can wait. And when you have emptied yourself, those plans seem absurd, distant, unworthy of the effort. You are left in a dull tranquility, a counterfeit peace masking a deeper ruin. This is no different, the old seducer said, than an addiction to any other drug. It is simply a chemical path to trance, a convenient way to make you forget your longing for significance. And all the while, time moves unfeelingly onward. Days and years slip through your hands while you kneel before the altar of momentary pleasure. This is the hypnosis. Not an enchantment imposed by some outer sorcerer, but a dream you willingly enter again and again until it feels like the only reality there is. This has never been a question of morality. It has always been a question of power. You are losing a war you do not even realize you are fighting. You are being conquered by a force that knows the architecture of your instincts with a scholar's precision. It has even taught you to blush when the subject arises, to avert your eyes, to call this discussion vulgar. It has persuaded you that to examine this force is a sign of shame, because if you never study it, you never learn to command it, and in your ignorance, you remain perfectly manageable. You see, there are two forms of defeat. One is repression, burying the impulse until it festers into bitterness, a grotesque distortion of natural desire. The other is unrestrained indulgence, a surrender so total that your spirit shrinks, too enfeebled to resist anything. Both are prisons, and the jailer is indifferent to which cell you occupy. For in either state, you are docile, you are predictable, you are harmless to the machinery of mediocrity. But there is a third way, a hidden corridor that leads out of the labyrinth. It is the way of conscious mastery, the deliberate redirection of this elemental fire toward the forging of a life that will outlast your bones. This is the path no one shows you, because it threatens every system that profits from your distraction. It is the secret the seducer most fears you will discover, that the appetite you have been taught to squander is the very fuel that can build your empire, crown your days with purpose, and set your spirit ablaze with conviction. When you pause to consider the hidden arithmetic of your days, you may realize with a shiver that every hour you spend in pursuit of trivial relief is a debt you incur against your own destiny. The ledger does not forgive your ignorance. The minutes you dissolve in chasing the apex of sensation are the same minutes that might have been invested in creating something no force on earth could ever take from you. And this theft of possibility does not occur by accident. It is a strategy as ancient as it is effective. For a man who is perpetually emptied is a man who will never become dangerous to the powers that prosper from his complacency. Consider how often you have dreamed of a grand undertaking, a business that would bear your name, a body of work that would echo through time, a life of uncompromising intention, and then watched, almost passively, as that vision evaporated in the glare of the present moment's cravings. You were not lacking in talent. You were not bereft of intelligence. What you lacked was the discipline to preserve your energy against the thousand seductions designed to siphon it away. And so, you settled into the slow erosion of your own potential, comforting yourself with the belief that this was simply how life unfolds. But no, it is not life that erodes your strength. It is the rhythm of thoughtless indulgence that corrodes your spirit grain by grain until you forget you ever had a larger calling. Look around you at the legions of men who have surrendered to this same rhythm. Observe their eyes, dulled not by age, but by a relentless leaking of purpose. Their voices betray a thinness of spirit, a wavering uncertainty that infects every word they speak. They have lost the capacity to inspire conviction in themselves or in anyone else. Their bodies may still move through the familiar routines of survival, but their hearts have long since abandoned the field of true endeavor. This is not the fault of circumstance, nor the injustice of fate. It is the inevitable end of a life spent chasing the soft annihilation of temporary pleasure over the demanding labor of creation. The devil's confession, so brazen and unrepentant, made this architecture of defeat unmistakable. He revealed that the greatest damage is not merely the depletion of physical vitality, though that is grievous enough. The deeper wound is the dissipation of creative force, the quiet extinction of that internal blaze which alone can animate the impossible into being. Each moment you yield to this cycle, you convert the raw material of your genius into a passing thrill, an effervescent burst that leaves you emptier than before. This is the transaction that repeats itself over and over in the background of your existence, the sacrifice of eternity for the narcotic of a heartbeat. How many ambitions have you buried beneath this hunger? How many bold declarations have you made to yourself in the hush before dawn, only to see them dissolve by nightfall under the pressure of this appetite? When you feel the fatigue of your dissipated will, do you tell yourself the truth? That your depletion was chosen? That your apathy was purchased by your own hand? That no one forced you to abandon your purpose? Or do you look for someone else to blame? some scapegoat to shoulder the weight of your surrender. You must understand that the loss is not confined to your unseen dreams. It bleeds into your visible reality. It ages you in ways no clock can measure. Your vitality fades from your eyes, which lose their glint of certainty and depth. Your voice, once rich with the resonance of conviction, grows thin and tentative. You begin to feel a subtle withdrawal of others from your orbit. They cannot always articulate why your presence no longer draws them, but they sense it instinctively. There is no longer an animating current in you that signals life, purpose, and danger. There is only the dull vacuum of a man who has squandered the invisible magnetism that once made him luminous. This is no metaphor. It is a concrete erosion of that rare quality Napoleon Hill called personal magnetism, the authentic force that makes others believe in you before you have proven anything. It cannot be faked. It cannot be borrowed. It is born only of conserved, transmuted energy, the same energy that most men expend in a relentless cycle of gratification and guilt. When you abandon your creative force to this hunger, you do not merely diminish your capacity to build. You extinguish the silent gravity that draws allies, opportunities, and lovers into your sphere. You become invisible in the most painful sense, a presence no longer felt. Do not imagine that you can outwit this law by clever rationalizations. You cannot. The ledger is exacting. The same force that fuels your charm and vitality is the fuel you have been taught to waste, and each time you allow yourself to be emptied, you reinforce the architecture of drifting.
The enthusiasm required to throw yourself against life's walls begins to flicker. The surplus energy that once inspired persistence becomes a memory. You start to believe that your apathy is inevitable, a symptom of age or circumstance, but it is neither. It is the direct result of your choices, small choices repeated with such consistency that you mistake them for your nature. Observe the final state of the man who has surrendered completely to this rhythm. His life contracts into the narrow orbit of satiating the appetite. He loses the ability to plan beyond the horizon of his next indulgence. He becomes less and less capable of engaging in any sustained effort that requires patience or faith. The energy he once might have invested in learning a discipline, forging a legacy, or cultivating the depths of love becomes a currency spent on a pleasure that grows more hollow with each repetition. This is the shape of the ultimate defeat. Not a grand catastrophe, but a gradual surrender that leaves a man perfectly intact in appearance while hollowed to dust within. When the old seducer spoke of this addiction, he made no attempt to conceal his satisfaction. He called it a perfect mechanism because it requires no enforcement. A man who is ruled by this appetite becomes his own jailer. He polices his own mind, builds his own cage, and carries the key in his own pocket. He mistakes his imprisonment for freedom because he can indulge at will, never realizing that the very impulse to indulge has become his master. And so he drifts, drifting through relationships, drifting through ambitions, drifting through the brief span of years allotted to him, until he wakes one morning to discover that he has drifted to the end of his story without ever inhabiting the beginning. But there is a passage through this labyrinth, narrow and steep though it may be. The same force that ruins the drifter can elevate the master. The same energy that corrodes your will when squandered can become an engine of transformation when disciplined. This is the secret the devil was forced to admit, a secret so powerful that every institution which profits from your inertia conspires to keep it hidden. For the man who learns to command this energy becomes a phenomenon, a presence too luminous to be ignored. He becomes a living paradox, grounded in purpose, yet unbound by fear. He becomes the rarest creature alive, a man who has discovered the origin of his own power and refuses to betray it. When a man chooses transmutation, he does not kill his desire. He refines it, elevates it from a biological impulse into a creative current. This is not an act of repression, but of conscious redirection. He denies himself nothing. He simply denies the hunger its customary escape. He contains it, studies it, learns to channel it into the work that will outlast his flesh. He becomes the steward of a force most men are content to waste, and in this stewardship, he becomes formidable,